So the first thing we're going to talk about is, as I said, about Newport and when you were a young man, when you first started hearing about it, if it was
When
important
did
to you.
they first start the first?
1954.
Oh, 54. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So whenever you're ready, incorporate the question a little bit into your answer. Right?
Okay.
So just tell me your thoughts about Newport and
Oh
your
well.
earliest memories of it.
Well, of course, as a young man, in 1954, it started. I hadn't started professionally playing till about 1955. And by 1956, I was already playing with the orchestra called Vicentico Valdez, and we did the Palladium Ballroom. You know? But we were always right next door to the Birdland, and then watching all the great and knowing of the great jazz performers that existed at that time, uh, and then Newport. So then it was with always something very uh, unique about the Newport itself coming out to the festival. And now I have the opportunity to be here for the first time. So it's really something, a real special day for me today.
Yeah. Now, how isn't that kind of a surprise that after all these years, someone of your stature and who has performed so much has never managed to have an opportunity to be here
Well,
before?
what happened is that remember that we're in a different genre, no? And it's we're always was the dance genre, and the Latin music really didn't get into the jazz festivals till years later, easy, and I, for example, finally by I would say 1984 is when I started to travel into Europe as far as dealing with all the jazz festivals, and little by little, then we started to work. I did the JVC, but I did them in Carnegie Hall, in different area, Washington D.C. We did and that, but never was invited, to come to Newport. So this one today is very special. And then the artists that are here today are quite incredible artists, that are here today. So it's going to be a wonderful musical afternoon for me.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we're all looking forward to hearing you. um, can you tell me a little bit about how you developed as a musician and your repertoire, and who influenced you and what kinds of music influenced
Well, the main influence naturally was my brother Charlie Palmieri. He was 9 years older and the only brother, no sister, and he was a tremendous pianist, and so he was my influence. And he would recommend me to different orchestras. That's how I got started, because I started to play drums. I mean, timbales. I was playing timbales at 13 years old with my uncle, who had a typical conjunto, what they call it, from Puerto Rico, right, with the guitars, and I play timbales. My other uncle played conga. But little by little, then I forgot about the timbales. We all wanted to be like a Tito Puente in those years, right? And my brother had started with Tito Puente, and he worked and recorded with Tito Puente for many years. So surely, little by little, as I was being recommended to different orchestras, then I went with Tito Rodriguez. And then by 1961, I formed my own orchestra. I've been on with 43 years with the original La Perfecta. And always then the influence of the jazz artists. And little by little, with different teachers also, and one of my teachers called Mr. Bob Bianco, then got involved into the jazz harmony, structures. And from Thelonious Monk to Bill Evans, the pianist, and all the different pianists that I was able to Tatum, we could just the list, and then the orchestras that I listened to. So I incorporated that into my structures because I'm essentially a dance orchestra leader. Right? It was to put the people to dance. And then the next thing I know, I'm doing these European tours, and they're really concerts. And that's when it started. So between the two combinations is how I formed, my presentations that I do on stage.
Well, now your background as a drummer, a lot of people say they still hear your drumming in their piano because you're so strong on the keyboards. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's a great jazz saxophonist, Mr. Donald Harrison, that he was with the Jazz Messengers with Mr. Brian Lynch, who's here with us today, and he was traveling with me, and then we would play some kind of a cut. They were playing this, you solo like a drummer. And it's true. I'm really a percussionist at heart because I love the drum, And then I utilize that into my playing, you know, and it certainly has been. It really has caught on, and then the independence of hands that I'll accompany myself with one and then solo with the other, and it's been quite interesting, my form of attack on the instrument.
Now, do you have a drummer and a percussionist in your band today?
Yeah, well, we always carry the full rhythm section, which is timbales, bongo, and conga. And from there, I structure the music that we utilize, you know, for dance or for listening. And in between there, we have then the Latin, which we call the salsa, and then I record also in the Latin jazz genre. So, and when I do anything to do with jazz, then I leave it always at a waltz, never past the waltz, because I'm not a jazz pianist. But I certainly am, you know, Latin jazz and the structures that I love to play, you know, and present to the listening and dancing audience.
Yeah. Well, we know you're going to get people up and dancing because the audience always responds to you that way. Does that motivate the band? Do you try?
Of course, and
remember, you need to incorporate my question into your answer.
Oh, all right, right. Yes, the structures are engineered, you know, to excite the dancer. That it comes from the time of the Palladium ballroom, when you had great dancers, and to be able to perform there, they gave you the opportunity to perform there. It was you get the approval of the dancer, and that's how eventually I was recommended, and they signed me for about 90 engagements throughout the year. But it's because we were able to communicate with the dancer. And again, I'm a dance orchestra leader, and you know, but I love variations and extensions, and that has helped me to be able to travel under the jazz, you know, genre throughout the world.
You think you're going to be able to get this Newport crowd up and dancing today?
The crowd in Newport would certainly get up. I'll even have them playing clave, and which we do throughout our tours. We just came back from doing 22 engagements in 35 days in 9 countries, and wherever we went, we had them doing the clave, you know, there, and then and getting up and dancing when they're not able to dance, for example, but they were dancing in corners whenever they can. Because the orchestra, the rhythmical patterns of our genre are the most exciting and most complicated, and it's based on the drum, and that comes along. It's complementary to the dance. So it'll be something seeing the reaction today and this afternoon when we perform.
Good. Last thing is there anything in particular we should be any particular interplays within your band, you know, between the bass and the
well, we have what we call them like not relays, but it's almost like the relay. You know, in other words, when we start the competition, you have the vocal singing when it's the salsa category, and then that goes eventually into a piano solo, and then I will give it to a drummer, and then we just keep that creates that tension and resistance to lead to that excitement when the horns come in, which will be like the tutti night, you know, and that would be what we call the mambo, and that's when it gets really the excitement really gels there, but it's building up throughout the competition, and certainly from the piano solo to give it to one of the percussionists, that's when we really synchronize, and then it starts to get that momentum. So it's either the conga, or it's the bongo, or it's the timbal, or it's the bass player on the solo. In this orchestra, I showcase them all. They're great musicians, and they need to be heard, and I certainly make it my business to present them.
Well, we're really looking forward to hearing you today. And Eddie, anything else you want to add before we?
Well, no, just that I thank you for saying hello and getting my views on being here in this beautiful day at Newport Jazz Festival, which is my first time, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to enjoy it even more when we hit the bandstand.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Eddie. That was great. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.